In this video, you're gonna learn what sport mode does, how it works, and how to best use it in your vehicle. This information comes from my years of experience having sport mode in my car. I'm Jeff from Modern Muscle 213, the YouTube channel for all of your muscle car needs, news, and events. And today, you're gonna learn everything you need to know about sport mode. I'll admit it, guys, when I first bought this car 2 years ago and I learned that it had sport mode, I really had no idea how to use it. Oftentimes, some people think sport mode is just a gimmick that really doesn't add anything to your car and its driving performance. But I'm gonna have to disagree. I think sport mode does add something to your car. And this is not just my opinion, but I'm actually gonna show it to you in this video. Pretty sure a lot of you guys are wondering, what is sport mode and how does it work? Typically, sport mode does 3 things to your vehicle. The first thing sport mode does is tighten up your car's steering. The second thing sport mode typically does is sharpen up your car's throttle response. Third thing sport mode does is that it raises your car's shift points and it holds gears longer in automatic transmissions. Sport mode may also tighten up the suspension in your car and loosen up traction for a more sportier and exciting driving experience. Okay guys, so now that we know what sport mode does and how it affects your driving experience, it's time to figure out how to set it up in your car. I also wanted to add that this is a 2015 Dodge Challenger RT, and this is a car that we're going to be using for this video. Setting up sport mode in your car should be pretty universal, but if you do have different settings in your car, I would suggest that you check out your manual just to make sure that you are doing everything correctly. But for this video, we are using the Dodge Challenger, and let's get it started, okay? Okay, we are in the Dodge Challenger. Now that we're in the car, let's take a look at the sport mode controls. So the first thing you're gonna need to do is you need to open up its settings and figure out where exactly sport mode is, and you're gonna need to set it up. So for this 2015 Dodge Challenger RT that has Super Track Pack, what we're gonna do is we're basically gonna press this button here. So here's the Super Track Pack button, and we are just gonna press that right there, and this page pops up. So now we're gonna go to the drive mode setup right here. And when we get into drive mode setup, you'll see that we have 5 different settings. So right now it says current mode is default, engine transmission is normal, paddle shift on, traction normal, steering normal. How do you activate sport mode in your car? Basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna need to find in your car, and you're gonna need to go there and just press the button that has the sport mode and activate it. In this 2015 Dodge Challenger, the activation for sport mode is going to be down here. So if you guys can see that right there, it does say sport mode right there. So basically what we're going to do is we're just going to press that button, and you'll see that the sport mode has been activated. So now it says current mode is on sport, engine transmission is sport, paddle shift on, traction normal, and steering sport. So in this car, basically, the normal option is to have the traction control to be in sport mode. And what the traction control does when it's in sport mode is it loosens it up. So if you ever wanted to figure out how to change your settings in sport mode, you just go right here to sport mode setup. And what we have here is we have the engine transmission. You can see right now, since it's in sport, you'll see that in transmission's in sport, paddles, shifters are on. You'll see that the traction control is in normal mode. I just do that just for myself, just because I always find that it's kind of better to have the traction control on. You know, I don't like spinning out my tires, but for this session, we will put it in sport mode, okay? Have a little bit of fun. And the steering is in sport, okay? So that is how you set up sport mode. Another thing you'll notice in your car is, in this car, it does show, when you do press a sport mode, you'll see that there's a little green flag that pops up right there. So just always remember that, you know, when that little green flag is up there, that your car is in sport mode. Another thing you guys have to notice is when you do have your sport mode, when the traction is in sport mode, you can see right there, traction's in sport, you'll see that something does pop up in your car, and that's basically going to be this little thing right here. You'll see that the traction thing will say traction is in sport mode. It means it's off, but it's not really off. Now that you see that the traction control is off, there is one way to actually change that. So if you'll see right here, there is a button right here that has the traction control right here, okay? And if you ever wanted just to change it to normal mode, you just press this button right here, and you'll notice that it goes off. So I'm gonna turn it back on and I'm gonna press the button, and I press it again, it goes off, right? So when you do that, you'll notice that the traction control isn't normal. Now, another thing you guys have to realize, I know some people really don't know this about Dodge Challengers or any car. To basically turn off the traction control totally and to do a burnout, all you need to do is you need to hold this traction control button right here. Just hold it down like that. And when you hear that noise, that means the traction control is totally off. And you can see it right here in your settings. You'll see traction, and you'll see that it is off. So if you ever needed to do some burnouts, we're not going to do any burnouts today, but if you ever wanted to do that, there you go. Now you know how to do it, okay? Let's get into what we really are here for. Let's do some driving in sport mode. Let's turn this baby on. And let's get out of here, shall we? All right, guys, so now that we're in sport mode, we're gonna do a quick little pull and see what it feels like, right? So one thing I really do want to say to you guys is, you're in sport mode, I would say that the best thing to do is to really have your traction control off. And why do I say that you need to have the traction control off? I say you need to have the traction control off due to the fact that it feels like when you're in sport mode and you start going, when you don't have the traction control on, it feels like the car, you know, just kind of stops going, right? It feels like, you know, the traction control kicks in, but when you don't have it off, you really get the full action of the sport and you really open up the car. See, now when you have the traction control off, you really kind of, it feels like the car really just doesn't, like it's hiding something, right? So that's something I recommend if you want like the full balance of it. So now that we are in sport mode, let's just take a look in terms of how I feel. How does the car feel when it's in sport mode? Right now, the car definitely feels like it's a little more sturdier. Feels like the steering is a little bit stronger, although it's not that recognizable. I must say, like, it does feel like the car is a little more grounded or whatever, but it's not that noticeable, just in terms of this car. So in terms of the steering, it does not feel that noticeable. In terms of the car's actual throttle response, it does feel like there is a lot more throttle response in this car when I am in sport mode. Another thing I have to say, the car also feels like it's in second gear. So I don't know if you guys, when you guys use the paddle shifters and when you're in second gear, it kind of feels like the car feels like it's going, but it feels like it can't really, it needs to be going faster, right? So that's one thing I've noticed in this car when I'm in sport mode. It feels like the car is in perpetually second gear. So let's just kind of like take a look. Like right now, when I'm in this car and I like slow down, like the way it's moving right now, it feels like it doesn't want to slow down. It feels like it needs to go faster. It feels like it just wants to, it feels like it really wants to go a lot quicker, right? Another thing that I've noticed when in this car, when it's in sport mode, it does feel like the car does hold the gears a lot longer. I don't know if you guys can hear that right now, but this is what it sounds like when you're in sport mode. It feels like you're in second gear. It feels like, you know, you hear that noise, it feels like, you know, it wants you to go real fast, you know? I don't know if you can hear that noise, but it's like a little bit, feels like it's in perpetual second gear. It feels like it does not go to first gear. It feels like it's just in second gear the entire time. And, but you definitely, when you're in sport mode, it feels like it really wants you to go fast. It is not as comfortable when you're in sport mode in terms of like daily driving. It feels like when you're like, you know, going 20 or 30 miles per hour, it does not feel that good. All right. So another thing that I have to say about this car, it does feel like it holds gears a lot longer. When you shift like from second to third, it feels like your RPMs go much higher up when you're in sport mode compared to when you're just in normal drive mode. Another thing I've definitely noticed about this car, in terms of sport mode in this car and, you know, what it sounds like, what it feels like. All in all, I feel like sport mode is good. I feel like it is good in your car, but I feel like it's really not useful unless you are like, you know, on the freeway and unless you're really banging it. Because I mean, right now when I'm driving the car, I must say, it does not feel as comfortable. See, like, I don't know if you can hear that, but it feels like the car is like, it's like lagging, right? But when I press the button, when I press the gear, it definitely accelerates much quicker than when it's in normal drive mode, that's for sure. But in terms of like daily driving, it is not as comfortable. Another thing I have to say is that I do like it better when it is in the paddle shifter mode. It's the second gear. I mean, the first gear is a little bit jumpy. I feel like when you are in sport mode, you have to kind of start off in second gear. You can't really start off in third or first gear, because when you do, your wheels will skip like crazy. And it's just much better to start off in second. You'll just have not as much wheel spinach in the car. So let's take a look at these paddle shifters right here. Yeah, it is much, much better. It makes the paddle shifters much more responsive when you are in sport mode. So that's one thing I really do like about it. So all in all, I'm gonna have to say this about sport mode. Sport mode is pretty awesome. I do think it's a great feature in the car. I do like it, but I don't think it's really useful unless you are actually, you're trying to go fast, unless you're on the freeway. If you're gonna be doing it in the street, there's really kind of no point, especially here in downtown LA, because, when you're here in downtown LA and you're going through these streets, it just doesn't work that well in the car. But when you're like on the freeway and you have some open road, sport mode is pretty great. And I do think it makes the paddle shifters a lot more responsive in the car. So I am gonna have to say that sport mode is something that does add a benefit to your vehicle. It definitely does add something. It definitely does make your car feel a lot more sportier, but it is really not useful and really has no application when you're like driving around the street. Or at least for me, it does not feel as comfortable when you are driving in the street. Like right now, I'm like lagging right now. I don't know if you can see that right now. But when I'm driving in sport mode, it feels like the car's in second gear and it won't go any faster. But when you press the pedal, especially with the paddle shifters, it is much better. That's pretty much all I have for you guys today. If you guys like this video, give it a big fat thumbs up. Also, if any of you guys are on Instagram, follow me at Modern Muscle 213. That's Modern Muscle 213 for a lot of inside information and things like that. Also, if you like what you see on the channel, subscribe. Thanks again, guys. I hope to see you soon. Until next time.